Hello, this is Jayanto Chatterjee from IIT Kanpur, and we are discussing managing services, the contemporary issues. Last week, we were discussing some challenges that arise in the service business due to some unique characteristics of service, namely intangibility and heterogeneity. We studied the kind of problems that arise like non-searchability or abstractness or generality and so on. And we also discussed how by managing the process, the service process, by understanding the process flow, by mapping the process, by creating the blueprint, how we can identify points where the touch points where the service may fail or the customer may have confusion, and therefore we can create their suitable communication that will resolve the challenge. We also looked at how promotion can calibrate the customer expectation or can provide knowledge and education to the customer for proper utilization of the service, so that the service provider can co-create the service solution in collaboration together with the service consumer, if that proper knowledge flow has already happened before the customer is in the service process. So we saw basically the 2 P's of out of the 6-7 P's that we have discussed for service business, the 2 P's, that is promotion and our process, service process, how we can manage these 2 P's to address the challenges created, unique challenges created in service due to intangibility and heterogeneity. Today, we are going to discuss another set of unique challenges created due to service characteristics and how we address those challenges. So the first topic that we are going to look at is the challenge of variable demand and constrained capacity. Now the first question that may arise will be that demand variation is there in all businesses. So we know that during Diwali there will be a higher level of demand for jewelry or for sweets or for clothing or for different types of gift items. So what is so special in case of service if there is demand variation? Demand variation is there. Winter clothes are not demanded during summer. So demand variation in products, goods are there due to seasonality. There may be a higher level of demand for a particular type of product, which is a fashion product or a fad product for a particular model of mobile phone. There may be many people may be queuing up, and many people may not be able to get the first set of release, and so on. So variability of demand is there in all businesses. So what is so special in case of service business, where we see this as a unique set of challenges? What is different in service are the 2 remaining service characteristics. Those are inseparability and perishability. So whether you are looking for a haircut, or you are wanting to see a movie, or at a particular point of time, or you are wanting to get your dental treatment, the service provider, the dentist, or the movie projection, or the physiotherapist, or the salon personnel, and you as a service consumer must be there at the same place within the same time and space framework. So this is the inseparability part. As a result, if the flight has already taken off and there were 20 seats vacant, that service opportunity is gone. This we have discussed before. And therefore, if there is demand which is higher than the capacity that is available, the red zone that you see in this diagram in front of you, where the demand is there on top of the maximum available capacity, then that opportunity, that business opportunity for the service provider and the service consumption opportunity for the consumer, gone forever. This is the perishable nature. So as a result, we cannot create inventory, which we can do in case of jewelry, which we can do in case of sweets, in case of gifts, in case of winter clothes versus summer clothes. We can manage our inventory, our stock, to manage the variation in the flow. This stock and flow counterbalancing is difficult in case of service, because service is inseparable, service is perishable, so we can't store in most cases. Of course, now with technology we are able to create additional opportunities. We will discuss some examples. We are able to transform the service proposition itself and thereby manage this huge level of demand. Or in some cases, we are able to manage the demand itself with marketing strategies, which also we will look few examples. But even to some extent we can address these challenges. In general, the key challenge remains that the variable demand and constrained capacity is a unique set of challenges in service business. Important point to note that the capacity can take several forms in the service business. It could be in terms of time, that means a particular show or a particular concert, a particular class, so which is existing in a particular time frame at a particular space, or in the same space there may be 6 shows at an auditorium, but there may be none of the shows may have any extra seat available. They may be all full if it is a very popular movie. So capacity can be in terms of time, capacity can be in terms of space, it can be a combination of the two, and the third element, people who provide the service or consumers who need to be there for the service to happen. So there can be mismatch between the availability of space in a particular set of time with respect to arrival of customers. So the salon may be lying vacant during afternoon hours, and maybe 20 people are waiting in the evening hours. So time, people, space, all three elements and other related elements, they all need to be managed to provide the optimum level of service. Now, this provision of the optimum level of service is the service business management challenge, where we are looking for both efficiency as well as optimality. Now, what is this optimal concept as opposed to the maximum capacity concept? So, in this diagram, as you can see, there can be a maximum capacity in terms of the physical infrastructure, But there can be some other constraints due to the capacity of the service people. So there is a possibility that theoretically 300 people can be fed in a restaurant in an hour if we look at the number of seats and the time it takes for each customer to consume the food provided, including of course the delivery time, etc. Now that capacity, that maximum capacity may be almost very close to the optimum capacity. So that means the gap, as you can see in this diagram, between this maximum line and this green line, the optimal line, this may be very narrow in case of say fast food joint, because a lot of the services there are either of the self-service type or provided by systems where machines or automation play a big part. But there can be other types of service like fine dining. It's not only dependent on the number of tables, it will be also dependent on the kind of food ordered, the time it takes to prepare the different dishes, the availability of the number of chefs, the availability of the number of waiters and other types of servers like stewards and ushers. And therefore, when we take all of these elements together, infrastructurally, the number of seat wise, the maximum capacity may not be the same as the capacity that we can provide for high quality level, because there are a number of other elements involved. So our aim is to see how we can reduce this gap between the optimal level and the maximum level. The more we can do that, better it is. And obviously, we want to manage this variation, as you see, this peak and trough, so that if there is some kind of an average demand level, then we want that average demand level to be as close to the optimum demand level as possible. And we also want to reduce the gap between the optimal level and the maximum level. So these are kind of, and obviously we do not want this, the trough, and we, even if it has to be there to some extent, we would like to raise this level so that it is as minimal as possible. So there are these three challenges: reduce the occasions of low utilization as much as possible, bring the optimum level as close to the maximum level as possible, and see that the average level of demand and optimal level of demand are as close to each other as possible. Obviously, there are two sides to the equation. One is the demand side and another is the capacity side. And we have to either adjust the capacity to meet this variable demand, or we have to manage the demand itself by shifting it in time, shifting it in space, or create some kind of notional inventory. Like for example, the dentist's capacity can be better utilized if appointments are fixed. If people are gainfully engaged during a certain waiting period, so that as soon as one patient is done, the next patient is ready to meet the doctor. Or when the doctor is taking a break, there are other activities that are performed by medical assistants. or we create some kind of an process line where while one patient is being attended by the doctor for the most critical part, which may be the intricate part of the root canal operation, other patients are getting ready. Their cleaning activities, their painkiller injection activity, these are maybe already in the process, and we can thereby, by splitting the capacity, creating parallel lines of activity, we can manage to handle an optimum level of patients, higher number at good satisfaction level. So let us look at some interesting ways in businesses which are very prone to perishability, like the airline, where if the flight takes off with more empty seats, it's a loss that goes straight into the financial results, cannot be recovered even if the next flight goes full, because we want all flights to go full. So therefore, if one flight has left half empty, that's a permanent impact on the financial results of the airlines. Now, what the airlines have done, therefore, and this is one of the standard techniques we can use in many businesses, particularly in those businesses where the infrastructure investment is high cost, like an airline costs in millions of dollars, crores of rupees, and where it is possible to create some supplementary enhancing services by which we can charge different prices and what we can create different buckets of demand. So we call this rate fencing and creating buckets of demand. So in this diagram you see how the airlines, they create different kinds of seats. So the business seats may take the space of 2 or 3 economy seats, but the business seats can fetch double or triple the revenue compared to an economy seat or an excursion economy seat. So thereby reserving certain capacity with certain, as you can see, stretchable seat and other food and beverage services, etc., you can create a much higher level of revenue for a particular part of the capacity in the same flight. So it is the same flight offering the same core service of a flight from Delhi to London, but within that same flight we can have pockets of much higher revenue by enhancing the service or providing some additional service, creating different demand streams for different revenue streams. But look at how the capacity also is flexible. These seats are all like cartridges. Most of these seats are readily pluggable, or you can easily pull them out. So by creating different pitches, that means the distance between seats, and by plugging in different kinds of seats, airlines often vary the capacity distribution among economy class or excursion economy, prime economy, business and first. So if there are more first class seats are in demand, very good. So they can increase the number of first class seats or business class seats, reducing the number of economy seats. If there is a lower level of demand for the business class seats, they can take out some of the business class seat areas and plug in or sometimes just change the service level and offer them to economy passengers. Sometimes a buffer is kept where if there is an overflow or higher level of demand from the economy, then you shift them to the quasi business buffer area where the seats are business types and they can be easily either provided with upgraded additional services like better food, beverage and other facilities like movies, etc. Or if it is now catering to the overflow from the economy seat, you can provide them the economy level of service and manage to optimally utilize the capacity. So, by creating split facilities, airlines create the flexible capacity. In many of the so-called multiplexes, for the movies, earlier there used to be a fixed auditorium showing one particular movie for in the same frame of time, in a particular frame of time. Now they have multiple screens, and in many of these cases these part auditorium with different screens, they have flexible capacity. So if there is a particular movie in very high demand, then auditorium 1 and auditorium 2 may be combined, offering a bigger facility, or maybe part of the auditorium 2 facility can be added to the auditorium 1, and for 2-3 weeks when that movie will be at its peak demand level, you are offering a bigger facility. Or more easily, movies may start in Audi 1, which has a much higher number of seats, and after 2 weeks when the demand sort of tapers, you can move it to Audi 2 and bring in Audi 1 the next movie which is at a much higher level of demand. Again, another example of splitting the same facility with different kind of offerings and different kind of rates and creating flexible capacity within the same overall capacity. So by this way, we are able to serve by this stretch and shrink mechanism. The outer structure may remain the same, but within that we have different levels of services or facilities for longer and shorter periods, or reduce the amount of time spent in process by creating some additional process streams, as we discussed in case of the cataract operation or dentist processes. We can adjust capacity to match demand. Sometimes we can create a close, this diagram that we had seen before, that we can use innovative approaches to match the demand gap between the optimal level and the maximum level by those adjusting capacity, which is all these things: cross-train employees, use part-time employees, or ask customers, involve customers to do part of the process, or add some facilities which can be rented or shared, and so on. So of course, therefore, if there is a demand variation, one approach is we do nothing. We accept it as a fact of life, but that is not very affordable these days. So we have to therefore do certain other, take some other actions. So now we can look at what actions can we take on the demand side. So we want to reduce the demand during peak period and bring it to the lean period. So restaurants often do it by declaring happy hours, where the lean period you get some better rate compared to the peak period. Alternately, you can actually charge some premium for the peak period. So movie halls often do that during the weekend of the release of the movie, so Friday, Saturday, Sunday, you charge higher and customers are ready to pay that. People who are eager to see it during those first 2-3 days, they are prepared to pay a higher price. Or you can create a Tatkal ticket where somebody who has to travel tomorrow can pay higher and get those seats if they are available vacant. So these are where you can actually either charge premium or you can try to give incentive for the lean period. Both are managing demand. Or we can actually create a appointment system, reservation of time, or we can have a queue. These are all managing the demand. In a way, creating some temporary inventory in the service system where normally it is perishable. So reservation system, appointment system, queue system, these are all examples of managing demand. You can also look at this managing demand in combination with process changes. For example, all of you know that all airlines want you to check in 2 hours before the flight time. What they are trying to do is they know that the arrival of customers will be varying with time. So they create a buffer time zone so that customers can arrive over a span of 1 hour. So the flight is taking off at 11 a.m. They want customers to check in by 9 a.m. Some customers will check in at 9 a.m., some will arrive at 9:30. So up to 10 o'clock is a time when they will gather customers and store them, because as you know, after you check in outside, then you go through security and go to the gate where again there is a pooling, people are waiting. So what you want is that at 11 o'clock when the flight is ready to board, or maybe 20 to 11 when the flight is ready to board, by that time all the flying passengers are there at that point of time. So you don't have a long boarding gap. You are not waiting. The aircraft, which is its time is most expensive, is not waiting for passengers to arrive. So you insist that check-in is 2 hours before, so that people can arrive between 9 and 10, and then they can travel to the gate between 10 and 10:40, and all will be ready to board at 10:40, so that within 20 minutes we can load the aircraft, and in the meantime luggages have been loaded. So at 11 o'clock the flight can take off. So these are pre-processing, creating different streams, so that by managing queues, by managing multiple process steps, we are able to create a match between capacity and demand. Of course, when we want to do splitting of capacity, as I was discussing about the airlines economy seat, business seat, it has to go hand in hand with price, or what we call rate fencing. Sometimes we can also do it by changing the product elements. This is an interesting example. At one time, there were many people interested to see the Olympics games or the Wimbledon games or many other sports events. And obviously, if a particular test match happened between India and Pakistan, or Australia and England and you could not get a ticket, then you lost the opportunity. Or if you are not present during the Olympics event of swimming which you are interested in, you lost that opportunity. Now, this is a particular situation where the demand far outstrips capacity. So, this is where actually the red part is much bigger, and it was always difficult to match this peak demand with respect to capacity available, because if you created a huge stadium to meet that peak demand, rest of the year it will be lying vacant. So, it will be, there is a big gap between peak and trough. So, this is an interesting example where information and communication technology, particular TV and internet streaming and other facilities, have changed the nature of the game altogether. Now, extensive, very good television coverage or on the net coverage is available, and facilities like sports bar or sports pubs or sports restaurants have been created, where a large number of people that overflow in that big hump of extra demand, people are diffused across these various kinds of entertainment centers where large screens show you the same game with an added advantage of being along with friends in a sort of private space, with additional entertainment facilities like food, beverage, etc. And so, as a result, today large number of people, millions of people enjoy the same game event, and the games earn a lot more money by sponsorship, by television ad gaps, and on the whole, therefore, more people are satisfied and more service providers or more entertainers are enriched. So, it is a good win-win situation created by transforming the service itself. So, let us summarize. We can therefore, in the same hotel, by creating rate fencing, and we will discuss this again when we discuss service pricing, the other P. And because the different types of demands have different elasticity. So, business travelers, for example, they are not so much affected by pricing. So, there is less elasticity of demand there. So, more or less the demand will be steady, almost parallel to the y axis. On the other hand, in case of the economy demand, a huge variation can be created by providing incentives. And this is a topic which we will discuss in greater detail when we discuss pricing, that how these capacity management and price management can work together.